Hello, friends, and welcome to today's Writers Workshop assignment. This should not be too surprising to you. We have completed one Writers Workshop, which we did last week, but I will give you a quick refresher of what we're going to be doing today. Based on the last on-demand that you completed, it was determined that the area that I want you to focus on right now is on-demand format. So for the next several weeks on Fridays, we're going to be doing some assignments to help you improve in that area. Like I said last week, I know it probably doesn't feel like this is true, but I can absolutely guarantee you that it is. The end of the school year is very quickly approaching, and at the end of the school year, we all know that we're going to complete our state testing. And as an 8th grader, one of the areas that you are tested in is on-demand writing. So the whole goal, the whole purpose of this is to improve in your ability to write on-demand writing pieces so that hopefully when we get to testing at the end of the year, you are super prepared and you are ready to go. Now, as we jump into your assignment for today, you should have the paper that you see in front of you on the screen. You should have a copy of that, and you should also have some coloring supplies. So if you don't have one of those things, go ahead and collect those, and then we'll get started. Our directions today say to read the passage and then color code the sample response provided. This is exactly like what we did last week. The only difference is this week we have a different passage with some different paragraphs that we're going to be looking at together. So what I would like to do first is go through and look at the passage. So you should not have a pencil or anything in your hands. I just want you following along on your copy of the text as we read this passage together. The passage is titled, "Should School Start Later? Experts say a later schedule could be good for your health," by Maggie Pierce. Your phone shrieks. Confused and groggy, you open your eyes. Surely it isn't time to get up already. You tap snooze and sink back into dreamland until your dad knocks on the door. "Wake up," he calls. "The bus will be here in 10 minutes. You groan. 5 more minutes. Please, please, please. If this sounds familiar, you aren't alone. Before the pandemic, nearly 70% of teens weren't getting enough sleep. During COVID, things were different. Many teens were able to sleep in because remote classes started later, didn't require a commute, or gave students flexibility in their schedules. But now that in-person school has resumed, teens across America are once again battling their alarms, and a debate has reignited. Should school start later? The science of sleep. In the U.S., the average start time for middle and high schools is a few minutes after 8 a.m. It hasn't always been this way, though. A century ago, most schools started around 9 a.m. Then, in the 1970s, districts began shifting to earlier schedules for teens, with elementary-age kids starting later. This saved districts money because it reduced the number of buses needed. When start times are staggered, the same buses can make multiple trips. Otherwise, you need enough buses to transport all elementary, middle, and high school students at once. Today, we know much more about teens and the science of sleep. Scientists now understand that adolescents experience something called phase delay. Here's how it works. At night, our bodies release a hormone called melatonin that makes us sleepy. Around middle school, this melatonin release gets pushed back by 1 or 2 hours. As a result, many teens have a hard time falling asleep before 11 p.m. If you have to be at school by 8 a.m., it can be tough, if not impossible, to get the 8 to 10 hours of sleep you need to be healthy. And that's a problem. If teens aren't getting enough sleep, it's going to impact every aspect of their life, says Dr. Lisa Meltzer, a sleep psychologist. Indeed, being exhausted can make you cranky and sad. It can make it harder to concentrate, sit still, and learn. And it can weaken your immune system and impede your ability to make good decisions. Given how critical sleep is to your well-being, it's no surprise many experts recommend that middle and high schools start no earlier than 8:30 a.m. Benefits and drawbacks. In 2017, Cherry Creek School District in Colorado pushed back start times for its middle and high schools. Since then, students have said they are less sleepy during the school day and participate more in first period. Meltzer, who led a study of Cherry Creek students, found that kids were sleeping more and they stopped falling asleep during their homework. Over the past few years, hundreds of other schools have also experimented with later start times. The results have been promising, with students feeling more alert and fewer incidents of tardiness. If later start times are good for teens, why doesn't everyone make the switch? Unfortunately, it's not so simple. For one thing, starting later means ending later, which leaves less time for after-school activities like sports, dance, and music. For outdoor activities, this is especially problematic during the winter when daylight hours are limited. Later dismissal times could also cut into after-school jobs and create scheduling conflicts for families. In Cherry Creek, some families say they have less time in the evening for homework and dinner. Transportation is another obstacle. Later start times could require some districts to invest in additional buses and drivers, which can be costly, and many parents might not be able to drive their kids to school before work. Of course, early start times aren't the only reason that teens are exhausted. Many things can get in the way of a good night's sleep, such as caffeine, stress, overscheduling, and too much screen time. Still, the benefits of a later start time are compelling. So what do you think? Should more schools start later? Here is our prompt that we're going to be talking about today. In 2017, Cherry Creek School District in Colorado pushed back start times for its middle and high schools. Since then, students have said they are less sleepy during the school day and participate more in first period. Over the past few years, hundreds of schools have also experimented with later start times. The LaRue County School Board is considering a similar policy. Is this a good idea? Should schools start later? Write an essay in which you debate this topic. Include evidence from the provided passage to support your ideas. All right, before I scroll down and we start looking at the paragraphs that I've written for you, I want to remind you that what we're going to be doing is going through each paragraph and doing some color coding. So you're going to take those coloring supplies that you have and you're going to underline specific sections of the text in specific colors. So just like the directions say here on the screen, you're going to be color coding the paragraphs using the key provided. Let's start with our introduction paragraph first. If we look over here in the right-hand column, this is a good reminder of the things that are meant to be in an introduction. Remember, the introduction always starts with a hook, then it has background information in the middle, and thesis at the very end. So let's take a look at this introduction paragraph. The first sentence says, "Would you love to get a few extra hours of sleep each night?" You are going to underline that sentence in the color blue because that is our hook. Remember, just like if you were going fishing, the purpose of a hook is to catch a fish. When you are writing, the purpose of the hook is to grab your reader's attention. A great way to do that is to start by asking a question. This is going to get your reader or your audience thinking about the topic that you're going to be talking about, just like we did here. Wouldn't you love to get a few extra hours of sleep every night? After the hook, we're going to go into the background information. I want you guys to notice that there is a lot more highlighted in red here than any other color, and that's because the background information is most of your introduction paragraph. It should be at least 3 sentences, but it could be more. And the job of the background information in the introduction paragraph is to explain what you are writing about and why your audience should care. If you look at the poster that's up at the front of the room, it actually tells you sentence by sentence what you should be telling us in the background information. So the first sentence should tell what the topic is that's being debated. The second sentence should tell what those who are in favor of this topic think. And then the last sentence should tell what those who are against this topic think. So let's look at the example here on the screen. Recently, many schools across the nation are considering a policy that would allow you to do just that. These schools are implementing a schedule change that would cause their classes to start later in the day. So that tells the topic. We're talking about later start times at school. Now I'm going to have a sentence explaining why some people think this is a good idea. I put, those in favor of this change argue later school start times will lead to more rested and engaged students. My next sentence is going to tell why some people think later start times is a bad idea. So I stated, on the other hand, those opposed feel that this sort of change could cause major scheduling conflicts. Ultimately, the evidence is clear. Again, this is most of the introduction paragraph. You're going to make sure that everything that you see highlighted in red on my screen, you underline with the color red on your paper. After your hook and your background information, you're going to get into the most important part of your entire essay, which is your thesis statement. Remember, the job of the thesis is to state your opinion on this topic. So in this case, you're telling me if you think school starting later is a good idea or a bad idea. And you are telling me why by giving me 2 specific reasons. So for my thesis statement, I stated, school should start later because it will improve students' emotional well-being and help students learn more.